Oh, I do like to be beside the seaside. Oh, I do like to be beside the sea. Oh, I do like to stroll along the prom, where the brass bands play, diddly-um-hum-hum. So just let me be beside the seaside. I'll be beside myself with glee.
Okay, so we've now completed the main body of our blanket and it's time to do the envelope border. Now I did think for a long while about various different designs for the borders, including like fish and seagulls and things. But to be honest, I thought looking at there was so much going on in the main blanket that I actually thought a plain border is best. Okay, so I have got here a hook that is half a millimeter smaller than the hook I was using for the main blanket. So if you were using your 4mm hook, you'll now have a 3.5. I've actually got a 3.25 because I was using 3.75 for my blanket. Okay, so we've got our smaller hook. That's just to keep that border just a little bit firmer, to stop it getting too wobbly. You'll also notice I've got some markers. So I've got these pale blue ones, one for each corner, because we're going to be marking each corner chain, because we're only working one chain in each corner, and sometimes, especially when on the double crochet round, sometimes they can be a little bit tricky to find. So if we put that in, we'll always know where our corner is. And then we're going to need one more for the slip stitch we work at the end of the round, but I'll explain them as we go along. Okay, so for the border, we're working this first round using our C5 or X3 colour. You can, like I say, you can use any colours you wish, but that's what the colour packs, the quantities of the yarn in the colour packs were just calculated on. Okay, so I've got that. Now we need our blanket. Now obviously I haven't, I think as I said in previous videos, I haven't actually got mine isn't exactly the same as yours, because I've just done the bits that I needed to show you in the video. So I've actually finished with the beach huts there. Okay, and because my seagulls were so close to the top, I have actually added an extra row, just on mine, I had an extra row of double crochets, back loop double crochets at the top there, which it's optional. Okay, so you can start in any corner you wish. Now to make the oh, I haven't tied these off yet. There's another thing I've got to show you actually first. But to make the instructions work, I had to pick a corner. So I'm telling you to start at this sort of right at the end where you would have ended your blanket. So the last row of the blanket right at the end there. So you can then work down this edge, but once you get to know how to do it, you can start in any corner you like. But yes, before we actually make our border, what we do need to do, well, what I always do is tidy up my ends before I make the border. Now I know some people say they find it easier to keep these ends out of the way and they're like this. And if that's you, then fine, you don't need to tie them off straight away. Personally, I find it easier when they're tied together and they're about 1 inch long, 2 or 3 centimeters long. I find it easier to keep them out of the way, because I find these bits get stuck below and I'm picking them up. But it's entirely up to you what you do. But what we will need to do before we seal the border is just tie them together. You can tie them in pairs, or to be a little bit quicker, just I grab 3. Okay, so 2s or 3, and just tie them together. Now don't pull them too tight. You need to leave a little bit of space here, because if you pull it really tight, you can again make it a little bit more difficult to get into that stitch at the beginning. Okay, so whatever way you do it, tie them together now or later, but I prefer to do them now. So okay, so you'll go around and do that, and when you have done, you'll just cut them all to say around about 1 inch, sort of 2 or 3 centimeters. Not too short. If you cut them too short, there is always a chance they'll fray, but like this, they're nice and secure, and there's no way that's going to come undone when it's inside the border. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll actually get started now. So what we do to get started, as we have been all along, I start with a standing double crochet, but I'm not actually going to put a slip knot in this time because I'm working all the way in the round. I'm going to be joining into it at the end, and personally I don't like having that extra knot there then. So all I'll do is, if you remember right back to when we started our blanket, I usually just twist it like that. Okay, and then what we need to do is we need to start right in this very last chain on that very last row. Okay, and we've got one standing double crochet, one chain, one double crochet. Okay, so you can already see it's very difficult to see just looking at it which one of those is the chain. So what we do is just grab our stitch marker and just pop that in that front loop of that chain. So now we know where our corner is. So to work down the side, all we're now going to do, you can see there, we've got our chains. Just going to insert our hook and work our double crochet. Okay, so this is the equivalent really, I suppose, of the slip stitch round if you were doing it the sort of traditional way for overlay mosaic. So rather than working slip stitches just into the edge of our project, we're going to be working double crochets into these chains. Okay, and if you notice, what you should find as you're working, one chain will be into one colour and the next one will usually be a different colour. Okay, so that's a way of checking that you haven't missed any. So carry on along this edge until you get to the bottom, and I will come back and show you what we do in the corners. Oopsie, getting tangled up. Okay, so I'm now almost to the end of this edge of the blanket, and you'll see I've just tidied up the rest of my ends as well there. So just got one more chain on the side to work into, and now we're right down to our cast on edge. So there is our chain at the bottom there. So this is where we're now going to be working our next corner. So that will be one double crochet, one chain, one double crochet, all into the front loop of that chain. So yeah, I probably should have mentioned before, actually, you're working into the front loops of these chains. You're not working around the chains. I mean, you could work around the chains, but that will make it a little bit bulkier. And also what you'd then find, you'd probably want to start on the wrong side, because you'll end up with a sort of a line. When you work around the chains again on the other side, that will then put like a little sort of a line around the edge, which you may want, but yeah, working into the chains, not around them. So as I said, we need to remember to mark that corner chain. And now what we're going to do along the bottom edge, and this is why I said to do a chain rather than a foundation double crochet, so you had this chain at the end, where with the standard foundation double crochet, that'll just be the double crochets all the way along, you wouldn't have the chain. And also working into that first foundation row into the back bump, so you had the two loops there, because we're going to be working into this loop, the front loop here, when we do the right side, and then we're going to do another whole border on the back, and we'll be using the other loop for that. Okay, so that was the reason for working into the back bump. Okay, so now we've done that, we've just got to work a double crochet into that front loop of every stitch along the bottom here. Okay, so just like so. So do that right until you get to that chain at the other end again, and I'll meet you there. Okay, so I've now got to this last chain at the bottom edge of the blanket. So as before, it's just 1 double crochet, 1 chain, 1 double crochet there, and remember to pop our marker into that front loop there of that corner chain. And then all we're going to do on this edge is still working into the front loop of the chain, so we are just going all the way up this edge again. Okay, so carry on and do that. When you get to the top edge, obviously the corner will be the same, and then you're just going to be working into the front loops along that top edge again. So do all of that, and I will see you when you get to the end of this round, which is obviously also the start of this round, and I'll show you what we do there. Okay, so I've now just got one more stitch left to work on this top edge of my blanket. There we go. I've now completed this first round. Now, if you wanted to just, you could, if you want to just do, carry on with exactly the same colour and just do several rows of single crochet, double crochets, I'm talking in UK terms here, several rounds of double crochets. And if you were going to do that, you wouldn't be fastening off now. What I would do for that is I would slip stitch into there, so right where we started, okay, and then pop that little marker in there. The reason being that then tells you where your last stitch is going to be worked on the next round. And then, say, if I was going to do that, I would just do like effectively a turning chain, so that doesn't count as a stitch, and then you'll be working, starting with your corner straight in there, 1 double crochet, 1 chain, 1 double crochet, and then move the marker up and carry on down, just working a back loop double crochet in every stitch. That's if you wanted to do that. Now, to make things a little bit quicker and also a little bit more decorative, rather than doing several rounds of single crochet, double crochet, I get used to saying that because a lot of people, more people use the US terms than the UK, but no, double crochet. So we're not going to do that. I'm going to pull that back and take that marker out of there. Okay, so we're back where we started there. Okay. So we now got to the end of that round. So what we're going to do, we're actually going to, we could end with a slip stitch and fasten off, but to make it neater, especially because we're going to be working into the back loops on the next round, to make it, we're going to actually do an invisible join. So what we're going to do, if you don't know how to do that, I'm just going to, there we go, cut that end off, and then we pull that end out. So we've now just got 1 strand of yarn sticking out of the middle of our last stitch. Then you pick up your tapestry needle, thread that on. Okay. And then what we're going to do, we're not going to insert our needle here where we would if we were doing a slip stitch, because if we do that, we're going to be creating an extra stitch. What we're going to do is basically replace this top loops of this first stitch with another one, so I'll go around like so. So we're actually going to insert our needle there, so right next to our marker, marking that corner chain. Okay, then don't pull it through too tight, because the idea is we're now going to make this loop that we're now creating look just like the others. Okay, so don't pull it too tight. Now you insert your needle back into that middle of that stitch where that yarn came out. If we flip over, you also go down, you can see there's this extra loop there, put it down through that too. Okay, and then say just pull it tight enough that it disappears and it now looks like all of the others. See, that's why it's an invisible join. Okay, so what I'm now going to do, we can pull this one tight that we started with. Just going to insert that in there. Okay, again, don't pull any of this too tight. We just go around like so. What we can now do, as this is all going to disappear into the border anyway, can just gently tie these two ends together. Okay, and then just trim them off like so. Okay, so that is round 1 of the border done, finishing with that invisible join. Okay, so round 2 of the border, we are going to be working trebles now, so I'll be nice and quick. I'm just going to do, I think, like three rounds of trebles just to frame our blanket. Now you can start this round in any corner you wish. Probably would say, just a way of keeping it sort of a bit neater, don't start in the same one as you finished the last one. So I'm just going to start at the other end of the final row of the blanket. Okay, so we are using our C4 or X1 or whatever colour you wish, but say if you're using one of the colour packs, these are the colours that I used to when working out the yarn requirements. So again, we're going to start with a standing stitch, but this time it's a standing treble. So again, I'm not going to put the slip knot on, just going to twist it round, and then you'll need to do yarn over again because it's a treble. Okay, then we're going to go to our marked corner chain here, going to work into the back of that, and there is our standing treble. Okay, then we've got 1 corner chain, and then because we're working trebles, we're going to actually work 2 stitches in there now. So each corner is actually going to be 2 trebles, 1 chain. Woo! 2 trebles. The only one that I haven't done that on is this first one, because I want to end as close to this corner chain as possible at the end of the round, because we're going to be carrying on. Okay, so we're going to complete this first corner right at the end. So take the marker out of there and pop it in there. Okay, so now it's nice and simple. We are just going to be working trebles into the back loop of all our stitches. Okay, so do this all the way along, and I'll see you when you get to that next corner. And here we are, so I'm now up to the next corner, that marked chain. So as I said before, I think it's going to be into that back loop of that chain, 2 trebles, 2 trebles, 1 chain, and then 2 more trebles. So make sure you don't work into the chain space, because if you do, you'll get a little sort of hole in the corner where you worked into the space. But by working into the actual chain, you can hardly see where the corner is, so it keeps it nice and close. And then it's a case of, again, just working back loop, trebles all the way down. Okay, so carry on around like so, and I'll see you when you get to the end of this round, which was also obviously the beginning of the round. Okay, so I've now got right the way round, just done that last treble, back loop treble on that round, and remember, we've just, like I said at the start, we've got to complete this first corner, so 1 more goes into that chain from the beginning of the round. Okay, so if we were going to be changing colour, now we would treat it just like we did at the end of round 1, where we would cut the yarn and do our invisible join, inserting our needle through there. Okay, so that's if you wanted to change colour, but for this we're actually going to carry on and do the next round in the same colour, so we don't want to cut it off really. So what we're going to do, we're going to slip stitch there. Okay, don't pull it too tight because you are going to be working into that. Now, I don't know if you remember, but when I got to the end of round 1, I explained that if this was a round of double crochets, you would be popping your marker in there, because that's where the last stitch would be worked on the next round. Because we're dealing with trebles and we're working two trebles, 1 chain, 2 trebles in each corner, rather than 1 double crochet, 1 chain, 1 double crochet, what we actually need to do is now slip stitch into this next chain. Okay, so we're going to slip stitch actually into there, And that is where we're going to put our marker, because that's where the next stitch is going to be worked. Okay. Then we have got 4 chains. So this counts. First 3 are our treble in the corner. The next one is our marked chain. Okay. So then it's going to be 2 trebles. Okay, so we're still working 2 trebles, 1 chain, 2 trebles in each corner, except on this final corner we do the last one. So the last treble for that corner is going to be worked into our marked slip stitch there. Does that make sense? So I'm going to pop that there in that top chain to mark where our corner is. All right. So now it's just like we did before. We're going to carry on exactly the same, and we're just going to do a round of trebles into the back loop. Okay. So, and then remember in each marked corner chain to work 2 trebles, 1 chain, 2 trebles. So carry on and do that, and I will see you when you get back round again. Okay, so I've now got all the way round my blanket, and I've now got to that marked slip stitch from the start of the round. So we're just going to work our last back loop treble into there. Okay, so now the pattern tells you to join with a slip stitch into there. Okay, and then we will be slip stitching into that chain again, and then you start with your 4 chain. Okay, so that's if you want to now do another round there. So the pattern is written for 3 of the plain rounds of trebles. What I'm going to do, because basically for my blanket I've only made a small one anyway, and there's no need to do an extra one for me. I think it's going to keep it in better proportions. I'm going to pull that back. So basically what you'll do, if you're following the pattern, you'll repeat round 3 that we've just done, and then round 4, I mean, if you want to make it wider, you can just keep repeating this as much as you like. And on the very last round you do, rather than joining with a slip stitch, what we're going to do is that invisible join again. Okay, so cut that off, pull the yarn through, and just do this once more together. Okay, so remember, we're not inserting here as we effectively would if we were doing our slip stitch. Put the needle right next to our, so it's basically sort of in our marked chain like so. Okay, pull it through, remembering not to pull it too tight, and then insert back into the middle of that stitch and down through that extra loop at the back there. Okay, don't pull it too tight, and then just weave the end in. So what I'm going to do, just take that down like so, away from the very edge, remembering not to pull anything too tight because we don't want to bunch anything up, and then we can just weave that in. Go backwards and forwards a few times, and what I'll probably do actually is leave that one there, pick up our starting end here, so we've got to make sure these are all nice and secure, so we'll just go along to get next to, there you go, next to that one. Again, don't pull anything too tight. I'm just going to tie a double knot in that. Okay, so those ends aren't going anywhere, and we can chop off like so. So then obviously that'll all get hidden inside the border. So that is, I've now completed border 1. What we need to do is leave the markers that are in our corner chains, leave them in place, but we don't need this one anymore. Okay, so that's how that corner looks, and all the others are like so. So now all we've got to do now is basically repeat what we've just done, but on the back. Okay, so now we have completed border 1. We need to do exactly the same thing again, but on the back, so for border 2. So if you can see here, I'm actually at a different corner again, so I'm at the bottom edge of my blanket. Remember, I actually started with some shells from On the Seashore on mine. So what we're going to do, when we do the top and bottom, you'll notice there's just, hopefully you can see, there's just this one loop of all of those starting or ending stitches again. So that's where we'll be working our stitches at the top and bottom. And then we'll still be working into the chains along the side. Okay, so I have now got my C3 colour, or X3. I mean, obviously you can use whatever colours you want. And we're starting again, as we did before, in this. So you should hopefully be able to see, there's the corner chain, because that's the one we worked all our stitches in before. So just pick up, oh, there we go, that front loop there. 1 double crochet, 1 chain, 1 double crochet, and then we are gonna put our marker in the front loop of that chain. Okay, so we know where our corner is. So we'd say we're doing exactly the same as we did on the front, we're just now doing it on the back. Now it can be a little trickier to see the chains on the back because we've already worked into them, but if you give it a stretch, you should hopefully, you'll be able to see where they are. So again, just work into that sort of front loop of the chains. Okay, so we're just going to pick that up. Oh, gone into 2 there. It doesn't matter too much if you're going to 2, but when you're using a totally different colour like we are here, it might show through if you work into both loops, but hopefully it won't. You're just picking up, there we go, that front loop. So we'll have a look at the front. There we are. You see, you can't see anything through like that. I mean, if you are finding it difficult with the working into the chains, you can work around the chains, but as I said before, that will make it a little bit chunkier, and you will also see a line on the other side. I'll just show you what I mean. So I've now gone right around that chain there. Okay, so if I do that for a couple, it's definitely easier to do, but when we turn it over, there we are, you see, you get a line showing through. So if you do want to work around the chains, what I would always suggest is that you actually work the back border first. So then when you come to do the front, you'll have this, basically this extra line would then be just on the back of your blanket, and then the front would look nice and sort of clean like so. All right, but as I said, that will make it a bit chunkier, so I don't like to do that. I'm just going to pull those 3 back. So it may be a teensy bit of a fiddle. Just work along, say just into that front loop there. And then other than that, basically, like I said, it's exactly the same as border 1. So you can carry on now and complete border 2, and I will come back and show you how we join the 2 together. Okay, so I've now completed border 2. Say as on mine, I've only got the 2 rounds in the sort of the trebles there, because I just made it smaller because my blanket's smaller. But however many rounds you've got, you should have 2 borders the same size. And what we now need to do is you can choose any corner you like. So I'm just back up here at the top, the end of the blanket. We're just now going to join them together. So you've got your markers in those corner chains each time, so keep them in until you've worked into them. And if we've done our borders correctly, what we should find is whenever we get to the next corner, we will always get to the same one at the same time. Okay, so grabbing your C1 or X1 yarn, or indeed whatever colour you want to join with, we're going to start again with a standing double crochet. And because we're working in the round and going in the same, like, I don't usually have that knot at the start of this, up to you if you do, but I am just, as I've done on all the others, when we've been going in the round on the border. I'm just going to twist that round. Okay, so then what we need to do, we're working into the back loops of either the chains or the stitches all the way around, just to sort of carry on with the pattern where we just get this little ridge there. Okay, so I've now inserted my hook into the corner chain on the front border, and then if we go to the back one there, I'm going to insert it there. So it's like it would be the back loop as it was worked, but it's so we've got the back loop on the front and effectively the front loop that you can see for the back, but we're working into those inner loops each time. Okay, and there is our double crochet. So we're not going to put any chains in the corners when we're now joining it, because we're not doing anything else afterwards. We're just going to work 2 more double crochets through the same 2 stitches. Okay, 1, 2, and then all we're going to do is go around the blanket, picking up the inner loops of both the front border, and I've got to try and keep my finger out of the way, and the back border to join them together. Okay, so that is that. So all we'll do, okay, try to keep my fingers out of the way. I'm going to just be tucking these edges in. I mean, you probably won't see them hardly because if you've got the wider border, but because I've made mine a little narrow, they just need gently tucking in as we go around. Okay, so that's it. So go around like so, joining them together, and then when you get to the corners, it's just like we did here. We're working 3 double crochets into the marked corner chains. Okay, so I've now got down to the next corner, and yay, I've got to do the marked stitches or marked chains at exactly the same time for each one. So all we do then, as I said, 3 double crochets into those marked chains to get us around the corner. And then what I forgot to show you before is obviously we don't actually need these markers anymore, so we can take them out. Okay, so then it's a case of just as before, carrying on around. Okay, so I've now actually got most of the way around my joining my blanket. So I've now joined 3 sides, and I kept thinking, I'll find one where I've slightly slipped up on the stitches, but actually I hadn't. So I've now got say around to the last sort of corner that I can show you, and I've just kind of forced it so I can show you where we're not quite the same on the front and the back border. So if you see, I've now got it. So we are up to the corner chain on the front border, but we've still got 1 stitch left on the back. So if you find yourself in that sort of position, there's absolutely no need to sort of frog it back or anything. What I would do then is just still work into the next chain there. So do all of your sort of fudging in that corner chain. So we're in that corner chain on the front border, and that last stitch before the corner chain on the back. And then what we'll do, we'll just now do our corner anyway. So instead of having 3 stitches through both the front and the back border, we're actually going to have 4 on the front. Okay, so if you just do something like that, no one will ever see the difference. And that's just the sort of thing you can do if you do find, and if it's the other way round, you might then have 3 on the front and 4 on the back. Yeah, so if you got to the back ahead of the front, then do it that way. But there we go, no one would ever know. Okay, so I will now see you when we get to the end of the border, just to sort of show you how to sort of finish it off nice and neat and tidily. Okay, so I've now got all the way round back where I started from. So I've cut off my yarn now, and we're just going to do another invisible join just like we've been doing before. So, but obviously this time we've just got to be a little bit neater on the back. So I've now pulled that through there, so I've just got my single strand sticking out of that last stitch, and as always thread it on your tapestry needle If we pull that one down tight out of the way, because we're not working into that, remember, we're going to actually insert our needle there, so into the next stitch, because we're replacing this top loop. Pull that through, not too tight, back into the middle again, and then also through that back loop there, and just there we go, pull it so it just looks like all of the other stitches. So then all we're going to do on the back is get this end out of the way. We're going to have to do the same with both ends. We're just now going to sort of work. Make sure you don't come through to the front like so. Don't want to do that. So just like weave in and out here. Okay, so there's nothing come through the front. Pull that out, and again make sure you don't pull it too tight because we don't want to bunch anything up. And then what you can do to kind of disguise, if you want, to help hold it in, if you can see the front loops there, the way they shape, so we could actually just come back like so, and again there we go, and it all gets disguised with those front loops there. And then probably just come back again, and then I'm going to just poke it through there. So again, make sure you haven't come through the front, so there's none of the other colour there. We'll pull that through like that, take that off the needle, and then you just pull it ever so slightly tighter as you cut it, then stretch it out. It's all disappeared, so that's all nice and invisible on the back there. So now all you need to do is exactly the same idea with this end, and then we're finished.
Oh, I do like to be beside the seaside. Oh, I do like to be beside the sea. Oh, I do like to stroll along the prom, where the brass bands play. Diddly-um, hum, hum.